Get her. Well, hello. I'm so excited to have this special opportunity to share a friend of mine who I got to know through the process of writing a book with her. This is Susan Lang, and you are on Your Message Matters. Welcome, Susan. I'm so happy to have you on the show today.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, it's exciting. Well, I met Susan. Oh my goodness, it must be about a year and a half ago, I'm thinking, when she was a speaker at an organization that I'm a part of, which is Professional Women's Roundtable. And she was sharing the most incredible story of coming to the United States through Canada and a couple other countries along the way from Hungary. And her story takes place when she was a child after World War II. And I don't want to spoil the whole story, but what I could hear that day, I was sitting in the back of the room and there was some other things going on at our particular table. So I couldn't hear the whole story, but I wanted to hear the whole story. So I went out front to see if Susan had a book that I could purchase. And she said no, but that she wanted to write a book. And that started our journey together. And I can tell you, it has been so delightful to get to know Susan, to try and understand her story. I say try to understand because as hard as I have tried, I cannot put myself into her shoes. So you're going to have to get the book to actually hear the whole story. But I do want to ask a few questions today to give you some insights of why Susan wrote her book and what it's all about. So, Susan, would you like to share with us why you decided to write a book?
Sure. Originally, I started writing just little episodes of my life, mostly to leave something for my nephew, my only blood relative that is still alive. And since my brother was an introvert and I'm the extrovert, I thought it was my duty to fill him in on a lot of our family situations and how we left the country, why we left the country, etc., etc. So that was my original thought. And I thought, at my death, somebody can just hand over a folder full of pages of my writings, and that will be the end of it. Until my friend Sandy asked me to go to this meeting and talk about how I escaped Hungary. And I did. And I have to say, it surprised me. The reception of it was so overwhelming. And everybody kept asking me questions, and I answered. And then at the end, all the questions were, are you going to write a book? Are you going to write a book? And I said, no, 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 I never thought of writing a book. By the time the end of the meeting, I thought maybe I should write a book. And that's when Lori showed up and said, if you decide to write a book, get in touch with me. And I did a couple of weeks later. And that's the start of something great.
Oh, and you're right.
My association with you, Lori. So
Oh,
I thank you for that.
well, it has been a joy to not only hear your story over these months and months of putting your book together, but just to get to know you and your heart for our country. It is so overwhelmingly important, I believe, for those of us who were born in America or maybe don't know anything else, to get to know people who have come here by choice and embraced not only their own culture, which is still so important of who you are, but to appreciate United States and be a part of our country and a valued part of our country. That's the part that I think sometimes people miss. And so tell us, what is your book about?
Well, my book basically starts like I mentioned. I talk about my parents, my father and my mother, and their influence on me over the years. And then, of course, came the Second World War. And what happened to our family, how it was separated for a while, and how we lost everything in the war. And you kind of have to put your life back together again. But I was just a child. I was going into first grade under the communist regime. And it wasn't anything that we were used to. And right off the bat, we found out that the indoctrination had begun. And we were encouraged, the children that are rather impressionable, we were encouraged to inform on our parents right off the bat. And it continued on and on and on. So it never let up. And that's one of the things that how communists indoctrinate and disseminate their information. They repeat, they repeat, they repeat until you turn blue in the face, and then they repeat some more.
Mm.
So you cannot get away from it. It's a forever situation. And so my school years were rather difficult in that for someone like me who is outgoing and talkative, I couldn't talk. And if you don't think that's difficult, let me tell you, it's very difficult. My mother, upon my departure to school every morning, would say to me, first of all, she would put a cross on my forehead with her thumb and said, you know, God be with you and God help you. And please don't say anything. And Susie, please don't even roll your eyes. And that was my daily send off by my mother. So you can imagine the rest. I did not want to get my parents into trouble, so I did not opine about anything. I took all that in and tried to process it and went on with my life. And I did what I thought was the right thing to do always, because my father encouraged me, my mother encouraged me, and uh, and it was a excellent advice. And I really feel for people that don't have the support of their family under any circumstance or
Mm.
situation.
Yes. Well, and you went through quite a bit. So not only did your life change almost overnight, then in 1956, the people of Hungary were not happy with communist life and they wanted some change. And that seemed to almost backfire, didn't it?
Well, you know, it's very true. When there is oppression in an area where there was none before, people don't take lightly and they don't get accustomed to it. And you can't scare them into doing everything they want you to do. And the time comes when people just gather together and they say, enough.
Mhm.
And no matter what it means to me personally, whether I die, whether I survive, doesn't matter. I have to do what I have to do. I have to make an effort to free my country. And that's what the uprising was all about. We knew right away that it's hopeless because a country of 9 million can't go against the Soviet Union of at that time 400 million. So we knew that, but we still, you know, there is a time in your life when you have to make a stand, if for nothing else, for your own self. And it's better to die with knowing that you have done all you can than to be on your deathbed and say, I should have, I could have. No, that wasn't for us, and I certainly still not for me.
Mhm.
So, of course, the uprising was put down, Russian tanks, the whole deal. The leaders, you know, killed, strung up, hung up on the bridges for everybody to know over the Danube and to see them. Pretty gruesome stuff. And then people started to flee. And my father said to us, my brother and I was 18 and a half, and my brother was 21 and a half. And he said, if you ever want to have a life, this is your chance to leave the country. And he asked us if we would want that. And we said, of course, yes. And he says, I'll arrange for a way for you to get down to the border from Budapest, where we lived. And then you're on your own from there on. And then, you know, if you make it, please let us know somehow so we know that you're alive. And he let us go. And so that is also covered in my book.
Yes.
And for every parent to see the sacrifices some people were able to make for their children. So then from then on, our adventures continue.
Yes.
And I mentioned Delore uh, because somebody asked me, how do you do that? How do you fit into a totally different society? And I only can speak for myself. For me, it was terribly exciting and hopeful that this is my chance. And I did everything in my power to achieve what I wanted to achieve. Nothing and nobody could stand in my way, and nobody did because we were living in a free country.
Yes.
And that's the point.
That's a beautiful thing. And I've mentioned this to you before, but I want to say it again. I cannot imagine what your parents were going through to um, know that they were sending you to the unknown, not knowing for sure if you were going to make it or not. Having children myself, I just can't even imagine having to send them off. But I also know that I would desire the very best life for them. And so I too think that I would have to send them for a better life. And it did work out for you, didn't it, Susan?
Oh, definitely. Absolutely. But, it's not easy. I'm not trying to give the impression to anybody that it happens overnight. It's just a lot of ways it depends on your attitude and how you perceive your reality around you.
Hmm.
And no matter what the realities were, I mean, I worked in a for a family as a live-in domestic. That wasn't part of my plan, obviously, on a long term, but it was necessary for me to learn the language. And
Yeah,
I was thrilled that I had the opportunity to do that. And I knew it's not going to last forever. And even my employer knew it's not going to last forever. But they
right.
tried to help me every way they could. And I appreciate that to this very day. So,
Hmm.
uh, you know, when you're willing to do anything for the cause, your own self cause, that's the ticket, that you
Yeah.
just do it.
Hmm.
You don't think about it, oh, it's beyond my dignity. That's not what I was supposed to do, blah,
Right.
blah, blah. No, you do anything and everything.
Well, and I know that you had aspired to be a doctor, so that definitely wasn't exactly the
The career
the
path,
job, the perfect job that you were hoping to get.
yes, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
But,
That's
things change, and you have to be flexible enough to know what you can and cannot do.
mhm.
And my first stop was in Germany, where they did, in fact, give me a scholarship, and I could have become a doctor. But, this was the Cold War period, and it was not safe being in Europe. And my parents said, that's not why we took this sacrifice to let you out of here, for you to stay in Europe and risk having to be overtaken by the Soviet troops again. So he says, get out of Europe. So I did, and later my brother followed. And that's how come I went to Canada. That's the only place I could go at the time. And they, of course, promised scholarships and everything else, which, of course, was a big fat lie, which is not surprising. Things happen. Now you know. But I realized that I have to learn the language first. And that's why I took that job. And I was right. I had to take that, had to learn the language if I wanted to proceed with what I wanted to do.
And it sounds like the family that took you in was the perfect fit for you because they really did help you learn the language and they treated you kindly. And that was very heartwarming to me to read that part of your story.
Yeah, very, very much so. I mean, this was a Jewish family that were, prior to the Second World War, were into junk uh, metals.
Hmm.
So you can't say that it was a upper class group at all. But after the war, there were five brothers. They went to Europe and they bought up a lot of abandoned military equipment, even tanks, and brought it back and melted down or sold it. And they created an industry with that. And the five brothers shared in that business. And I worked for one of them and his wife and children. So they knew where they started and how they started and what happened. And and I think they bought into the idea that I wanted to make something of myself
Hmm.
and really help me out. You
Yeah.
know, their 13-year-old, they sat him down with me and said, help him do his spelling lesson. Well, it was for me to learn spelling, right? So things like that. They were extremely gracious and lovely. And I can't thank him enough, even from today, way back.
Yes.
And, you know, I have to say, I don't know how that works. It's like, I'm going to say a terrible analogy. When you meet a dog, you know, if the dog knows that with an open heart going toward it, it's not going to attack you.
Hmm.
It's going to look at you, size you up, and come to you for a hug or for an ear rub or something.
Yeah.
And people are very much the same,
Hmm.
but we many times we don't allow that interchange to occur.
Hmm.
But I think I've been fortunate to have the good nature that I go to people with an open heart
Hmm.
and they respond. And
Yeah.
I never had a bad experience, never.
Yeah.
Lori, even years later, 10, 15 years ago, when I was traveling all by myself the world, and I went to the most godforsaken places all by myself, not a tour guide, nothing, me. I took a plane ticket and I went. And people were wonderful to me. And I never had a bad experience. And it kind of, it uh, refills your heart with knowing that people are good.
Yes. I
And
think
and
sometimes we forget that.
yes, and it's a wonderful experience. It's a wonderful feeling to have.
Yeah. And I agree. I haven't traveled a lot like you have, but I have had some wonderful experiences where I had a little bit of that fear of the unknown, and someone would show up just at the right time, or a kind word was spoken, or I was shown the right way to go. And it just
Yeah,
felt like God's hand was on my life to open the doors for something because I was doing something good.
yeah. It
Yeah.
happens that way, and it's worth everything, in your life. So uh, I'm happy. I had a great life,
Yes, yes. I'm happy you did too, and I'm happy that I've gotten to meet you.
and you
Uh,
still have time to go and travel.
yes, I do. I do still have time to go and travel. In fact, I keep looking at places that I want to go, and there's so many. I can't decide on anything. Oh, but I'm sure that I will. I'm really hoping to take my grandkids with me somewhere. Um, so for people who are immigrating to a new country, what advice would you give to them?
Follow their dream, follow their star. Don't let anybody divert them from their goal.
Mm-hmm.
Don't keep company with anyone who says, oh, you can't do that. Oh, you don't know. This is not going to work. You have to, just wait. You have to give up on it. Forget them.
Hmm.
Do not get together with them. Come together with positive people who are full of hope and encouragement and willingness to help you along the way. And that's the key, You just have to press on and go forward until you reach what you wanted to reach.
Absolutely. I think I heard a quote one time, it might have been Henry Ford, that said, whether you believe you can or you believe you cannot, the truth
Yeah.
is either way. It's all up to you and what you believe.
In other words, believe in yourself. And people ask me about, you're so confident. Yeah, I am sometimes overconfident. That's true. But who else stands up for you better than yourself?
Right. Absolutely, I agree.
So it's yeah, I am fortunate. I have what you call good genes, but good genes can be subdued if you don't have yourself the determination to go on. But I tell you, what worries me is the uh, breakup of families where they don't have the mother and father that I had to
Hmm.
instill in me that I can do anything,
Yes.
and that's bad. And they
Hmm.
don't have a spiritual advisor to help. I look upon my life, and I'm not an overly religious person. I don't want to give the idea to anybody that I am. I just have a very deep belief in God. And I think the best way I can put it, He held my hand all the way through my travels.
Hmm.
And I really truly believe that. And I felt it and I still feel it.
Yes. I
And
feel similarly through everything I've been through in my life. I've had a lot of challenges, a lot of heartache, but I just don't feel like I faced it alone. And I'm grateful that I have that knowing within me that a lot of people don't have. Um,
it's
Thank you for sharing that
my
story.
mother that put that into me in a situation where you were not supposed to go to church, okay?
Right. Yeah.
So I had most of my education from her directly. And my father was the somewhat of a disciplinarian, but very loving
Hmm.
disciplinarian who knew of no failure,
Right.
and that was very helpful to me. So,
Wonderful. That's
and
what it,
honesty.
I loved reading about your mom and dad from your perspective and all that they went through, the sacrifices that they made. Um, that there was one story that was very scary where your mom was trying to get back to your home to see if there was anything there that she could use
Yeah,
to survive. And just some of the stories are so powerful that it almost seems like it's not true, but when you know that it is true and that that is what you've survived, it's incredible. Would you find going back in your life and almost reliving these stories as you wrote them, was it healing in any way, cathartic, or tell me about what that felt like?
the most interesting part of writing the book and my stories and going back in my memories was that there was nothing for me to heal.
Hmm.
I felt that because of my mom and dad,
Yeah.
I was not affected, not
Hmm.
hurt. I
Right.
was affected, obviously, but not hurt by it
Right.
because they helped me to break through and take off the coat of worry or whatever.
Yeah.
And so when I go back and think about it, I feel it all helped me in my life. It
Hmm.
helped me become who I am and
Yes.
who I've been all the way. And I'm very grateful for that
Hmm.
on many levels.
Yes.
Because you almost, I say, you cannot teach it. You can, and plus I have to say I had excellent teachers too in school,
Hmm.
from the previous regime, where they cared about the students and not about the dogma of communism.
Hmm.
So that has helped too. But if things change as they can change, things can change on a dime, and you most not expect it, and that can be very. tragic because you're not prepared for it. But
Right.
my life was gradual throughout the years. And so I have honestly can tell you, I would not change anything.
Yeah.
I feel it prepared me for the future, and I feel very good about myself and what I've accomplished, and that I was not compromised in any way, and not
Right.
compromised any of my principles. And I feel my father would be proud of me. you know,
Oh, I'm sure he would, both your mom and your
that's
dad.
such a big deal to me. You
Of
know,
course, yes, it does make sense.
yes,
I'm sure that both of your parents are extremely proud of you. And I remember seeing the picture of your nephew when you were able to show him the book.
yeah.
And the smiles on both of your faces was just it just made my heart full for sure that to know I was a small part of your story and helping you. So grateful to have met you, Susan, and I'm so grateful that you are taking time today to be with me and to share your story on my show. And so how can people find you if they want to reach out to you?
Well, my book is on Amazon, so you can find the book by my name, and the title of the book is The Road Taken.
Yes.
And that's another one I chose by trying to suggest to people that when you come to a fork in the road, take it.
Yes.
That's your opportunity. You go for it. And I hope people get that out of the book.
Yes. Oh, I'm sure they will.
Yeah. And I'm on Facebook, and I'm on by email. So
Yes. And if somebody would like to reach out to Susan, by all means, get a hold of me too. I
yes,
can share her information and let her know that you're interested in talking to her. And thank you again, Susan, for being a part of my life. It's been a joy to know you for these past months, and so grateful that we got your book done and into the marketplace so you can share your story over and over and over again with those people who are interested in what's happening. Even now, when you look at what's happening in the world today, and they're
yes.
talking about World War III. um, you've experienced a world war and you know what that feels like to have your country taken over. And I can't, like I say, I know I've said it many times, I just can't even imagine what you've been through. And I'm so grateful to get to know you because so often when people think of these kinds of situations in their life, they think that they are a victim. And you were a victim of circumstances that were out of your control, but you do not have any sort of victim mindset whatsoever. You are a survivor and your story is powerful. And I do hope people will get your book and reach out to Susan and let her know what you think about it because she does truly have a very powerful story.
I would love that. And I thank you for all your help and our association and our friendship that we have developed. It's,
Yes. Uh,
yeah,
well, thank you so much.
yeah.
And God bless everyone. Thank you for listening. Bye
Thank
bye.
you.